We're a little lightly attended at the beginning of Open Door Shabbat, but I feel like we should get started anyway. We've got a special Shabbat today. We're bringing our friend Kiwi over here. No, we're not honoring him. The Kiddush is not in your honor. Okay.
It is.
Okay. Well,
we honor.
Don't worry. By next week, they'll have forgotten. Don't worry. By next week, they'll have forgotten you. We have a bat mitzvah here next week. So, you know, the more people we have, and the more smachot we have, the more weeks a special thing will just be another special thing. So this week it's you. Next week it's a bat mitzvah. The week after that it's a baby naming. The week after that it's a double bar bat mitzvah. Then nothing. Then another mitzvah. Then the journal service. So you won't be the only one who has to be embarrassed over the next 2 months. Well, yes. So
there's also an Adam Sandler movie viewing in the middle.
But that's not really a celebration of what life has been.
It's a celebration of embarrassment.
I mean, I guess it's a celebration of his daughter's bar mitzvah. Actually, I know the rabbi very well whose synagogue was used in that.
What?
In that movie. It's in Toronto. Like, you know how like
can we get them to like zoom in?
It doesn't involve like the actual people there. But you know how like the rabbi played by Sarah Sherman, and like she comes into her office and like she's like walking on her like treadmill desk.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that rabbi has absolutely had a treadmill desk. That's his treadmill desk. I worked in an office with him where he had that treadmill desk. I mean, unless he got a new one, but like either way, like she was like using his treadmill desk.
Is it a really big conservative synagogue in Toronto?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The former father of that synagogue was the grandson of one of the members of our community.
All right, then. All right, so let's start with our meditation. This is going to be one of those weeks where because I have to read the meditation out loud, what I'm going to do is, because I feel like people, when they're practicing meditation, they get a little self-conscious. So I'm going to, when I start the meditation, I'm going to turn my back to all of you so you don't feel like, I'm watching you. Because it's one of these things where a key part of meditation, in most cases, people like to close their eyes. So you don't wonder if other people are looking at you, but you might wonder if I'm looking at you. So I'm going to make that life a little bit easier for you. So this is called the RAIN meditation. RAIN is an acronym, RAIN. It comes from a woman named Tara Brach. A lot of her work on a variety of topics have been a part of the meditation program I have been at, which I'll be wrapping up this summer. So I learned the RAIN meditation like about a year ago, and I've been really excited to use it. So with that, find yourself a comfortable position. Take a few deep breaths in. And a few deep breaths out. Deep breaths in. And deep breaths out. We all get lost in the dense forest of our daily lives, entangled in incessant worry and planning, in judgment of others, and in our busy striving to meet demands and solve problems. When we're caught in that thicket, it's easy to lose sight of what matters most. We forget how many of us speed through our day anxiously crossing tasks off a list. This often comes hand in hand with feeling beleaguered, annoyed at interruptions, worried about what's around the corner. And so this is where the RAIN meditation comes into play. Close your eyes and take a few full breaths. Bring to mind a current situation in which you feel stuck, one that elicits a difficult reaction, such as anger or fear, shame, or hopelessness. It may be a conflict with a family member, a chronic sickness, a failure at work, the pain of an addiction, a conversation you now regret. Take some moments to enter the experience, visualizing the scene or situation, remembering the words spoken, sensing the most distressing moments. And this is what RAIN means. R, recognize what is happening. As you reflect on the situation, ask yourself, what is happening inside me right now? What sensations are you most aware of? What emotions? Is your mind filled with churning thoughts? Take a moment to become aware of whatever is predominant or the overall emotional tone of the situation. A, allow life to be just as it is. Send a message to your heart to let be this entire experience. Find in yourself the willingness to pause and accept that in these moments, what is. You can experiment with mentally whispering words like yes, I consent, or let be. You might find yourself saying yes to a huge inner no, to a body and mind painfully contracted in resistance. You might be saying yes to the part of you that is saying, I hate this. That's a natural part of the process. At this point in RAIN, you are simply noticing what is true and not attending to judge, push away, or control anything you find. I, investigate with gentle, curious attention. Bring an interested and kind attention to your experience. Some of the following questions may be helpful. Feel free to experiment them. Some questions such as, what is the worst part of this? What most wants my attention? What is the most difficult, painful thing I am believing? What emotions does this bring up? Fear, anger, grief. Are these feelings familiar, something I've experienced earlier in my life? If the most vulnerable, hurting part of me could communicate, what would it express? Words, feelings, or images? How does this part want me to be with it? What does this part most need? A final note, many students initially see investigate as an invitation to fire up their cognitive skills, analyzing the situation or themselves, identifying the many possible roots of their suffering. While mental exploration may enhance our understanding, opening to our embodied experience is the gateway to healing and freedom. Instead of thinking about what's going on, keep bringing your attention to your body, directly contacting the felt sense and sensations of your most vulnerable place. Once you are fully present, listen for what this place truly needs to begin healing. N, nurture with loving presence. As you sense what is needed, what is your natural response? Calling on the most wise and compassionate part of your being, you might offer yourself a loving message or send a tender embrace inward. You might gently place your hand on your heart. You might visualize a young part of you surrounded in soft, luminous light. You might imagine someone you trust, a parent or pet, a teacher or spiritual figure, holding you with love. Feel free to experiment with ways of befriending your inner life, whether through words or touch, images or energy. Discover what best allows you to feel nurturing, what best allows part of you that is most vulnerable to feel love, seen, and or safe. Spend as much time as you need offering care inwardly and letting it be received. In a moment, we're going to take about 10 minutes to focus on our own RAIN meditation. as a reminder, think about a current situation where you feel stuck. Recognize what is happening. Allow life to be just as it is. Investigate and then nurture. We'll sit in silence for the next 10 minutes. can open your eyes. Oh, I see. Doorbell rang a few times. It's 10:27, so we're gonna start our main service, let's say in 5 minutes, so people wanna stretch and say hello to each other, and in the bathroom, we will come back together in 5 minutes.
And there is something Beatles about anything not. Any songs. And just hear it in my head, I'm about this. Chavez. And the other thing is that the fact that we were talking about a weather issue. Is the thing that's really affecting my heart and soul most of what's happening in Israel. And how the whole world is reacting to it. One of the things that's happened this week is that there's this beautiful young Israeli girl.
So wherever you like, there's plenty of those.
Who was competing in the Eurovision contest, which is a big music and art event in Europe. And she wrote a song about what?
I was like, how do you change the lyrics?
Yeah, now she calls it Hurricane.
Yeah, it's a minute from the first side, people have to like 7 shower and change lyrics. Did you see the original song?
I know, but the whole thing is that we were just meditating about weather and rain, and her song was about hurricane. And that's all the showing around in my life right now, all about what's going on in Israel. And another weather event is what she's saying about. It's almost repeating. Sort of singing it in the back of my head.
It's a little more positive.
The arc is on. Pink box is up there.
That's a great song.
So we also, is there like a property?
Oh, we're gonna have the Torah marches.
Okay.
And we just see that.
How are you?
Well, how are you?
Good.
Make sure please go.
Yeah, it's very good.
And what's very funny is I know Candace that where they're from, one from Argentina,
And
one
yet,
from
we're
Uruguay.
Yeah. Cool.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
How do you know that? Just through
She's
like.
like, one is the country that's
Great journalism.
place.
Many people
Oh, wow.
in this congregation, as children,
Her full-time job is a translator.
School of Journalism.
Oh, cool. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. It was very fun. It was very. I learned to drink hot dogs. Very intense.
Yeah, in order to
It's nice to get away.
Yeah.
And this is Now we're
It's just not, you know.
Uh-huh.
So what's the next?
Next, well, I think it's gonna go first. Robin is going like with her like sister and nieces to like. I don't know. I asked, and she was like, "You're not allowed." And then, but then the next big trip we'll go on together is to we're gonna go to Poland because that's where we have my ancestors are from. So we're gonna explore. Yeah, it was a lot of fun though. Like, just
Anyone know where Ari went?
He's just downstairs.
Oh, okay.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was like
more.
there's a lot of I ate like a steak and a half, which was crazy, but really good. And I lost weight. It was awesome.
And we're walking.
Last week we weren't here because we did the Great Saunter. We walked
Contributed to this
all the
quote.
way around.
The more I learn, the more I
Oh, we
learn.
both finished.
Good on you.
Yeah. So it was like, what?
Cool. And a good perfect quote for us to get started. So it's good to see all of you. Welcome, returnees and people who are here for the first time. I feel like at this point, this is our third Open Door Shabbat. It's good to give like a little recap that we're like, each time I'm doing each section of the service, a little going into it a little bit more in depth so you understand it better. Assuming we continue doing Open Door Shabbat, which is, I think, somewhat is pretty likely at this point, we'll probably just start back at the beginning again and just do it on a cycle because there's so much to cover that actually doing it over and over again, but doing something different each time will help you learn more over time. Today, we're actually focusing on what really is like the central prayer part of really not just Shabbat morning services, but any morning service, which is what we call shacharit, which just comes from shachar, meaning morning. There's nothing special about the word other than that it's just called the morning service. And I figured that one of the things we focus on this time is one of the biggest obstacles that people have towards praying, even if they feel like they can read the Hebrew, because Hebrew is usually the number one reason people don't feel comfortable with the Siddur is that I don't know any of the words. But even if they know all the words, the second reason is that it's like, it's too many words. It's too many words in a language that I don't understand, right? And the Siddur has the best words. That's a quote from someone that has the best words. But it's a lot of words. And I'm going to let you all in on a little secret, which is that a lot of those words, while not unimportant, perish the thought, are not the most important part of our prayers. And maybe one of you will get the answer to this question without it being too difficult. If you don't get it, you'll be kicking yourself for not thinking about it. But in a Jewish prayer, any Jewish prayer, what is the most important line of that prayer? Any Jewish prayer. That's a good guess, right? Because Amen is in some way saying like ditto to like the whole prayer. It's a good guess. I'm thinking about something that you actually say in that prayer. Not every prayer has one, but many do. And there are things that we could say in a synagogue, or we could be saying lots of other times during the day.
A request to God or to Hashem, Adonai.
Wait, so sorry, including what I heard some words that you said.
So I was
No. Well, so God's name is the most important name, but you're saying a request of something. And when we request something of God or we thank God for something, it usually begins with three words. Baruch atah Adonai. Okay? So even if you don't know a lot about prayer, right, the words Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, something, right, is often something that even people who don't feel that comfortable with the Siddur just learn by rote, right? If you've lit Hanukkah candles for a couple of years of your life, you know blessings that start with Baruch Atah Adonai. Well, in a prayer service, passages that have this formulation, Baruch Atah Adonai, and then whatever comes after it, that line is the most important line of the entire prayer. In fact, my children, my older two children, because my youngest isn't old enough to go to school yet, but my older two children at Solomon Schechter, when they taught them the Siddur, they just teach them the blessings. So like they give them a Siddur where like there might be a paragraph with like 10 lines of stuff, and the bottom of it is like a Baruch Atah Adonai, and they just show them a page where it's just the blessing. Because for them, they want them to understand what the blessing's about, and as they get older, they'll start to be able to look at the content of the blessing. But since the blessing's the most important part, that's what they learn first. We don't normally learn Jewish prayers this way. And I think that's a shame, because it means that we jump people right into a passage that has a lot of content, and then that's where that's the part that people are like mumbling, right? So you do a passage, it says Baruch Atah Adonai, something, Amen, and then you go on to the next passage, people mumble quietly until you get to the end, and then it's Baruch Atah Adonai again. So this morning we're going to focus on that part, this part of our Shachari service, because I'm going to, instead of looking at any of the prayers, we are just going to focus on the blessings between the beginning of the service and the Amidah, of which there are 4 of them. So we're going to focus on 4 lines, but it's going to cover like 12 pages of stuff in what we're learning. And don't tell anyone the rabbi said this. Okay? I'm looking at you, Sam. Okay? Don't tell anybody the rabbi said this, but if you were to, instead of when you come to synagogue, just say the blessings and nothing else, you would, in a sense, fulfill most of your obligation to pray. There actually are prayers that are in the Siddur for when your time is short and you forgot to pray. It's only like a paragraph, and basically it just combines all of these blessings into one. So open up your Siddurim, and we're on page 107. So the first lesson that we recite is 1, 2. It's the third line from the top on 107. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or v'borei choshech oseh shalom v'borei et hakol. Praise to you, Lord our God, rules the universe, creating light and creating darkness. And I don't know if I like this translation, but Oseh brings peace over everything that you've created. Brings peace over everything that you've created. So this is the first blessing of like the main part of the service, and it seems like it's thanking God for light and darkness. Of all the things in the world to thank God for, why start with light and darkness? I'm sorry? Okay, so one answer is, well, duh, like that's the first thing that God created. So if like every day we're kind of like reliving creation, it would make sense that that it would start with light, because God created light. Yes, Evie?
In Judaism, we honor time as a cycle, and we sanctify time and place, and so I feel like this is another way to sanctify that we have another day.
Okay, so sanctifying time is a really interesting thing, right? So, Abraham, Joshua, Heschel in the Sabbath, one of the things that he points out is that as human beings, we have the capacity to change almost anything in our world. However, one thing that nobody can change, that nobody can buy more of, is time. Like, we all get the same 24 hours a day as everybody else, unless someone has secretly created like time travel and been telling us. But like, absent that, we all get the same 24 hours. So every day, creation keeps going on. So we're thanking, because it's the first thing, the light, and then in many ways, it's something that repeats itself over and over and over again. But here's the problem. Why then do we thank God for darkness? Like, when in the first day of creation, God, it doesn't say God create, like said, let there be light, and then it says God said, let there be darkness. God just says, let there be light. So why do we thank God for creating darkness? And what does that even mean? Yes.
You need darkness to have light. If there was no darkness, you wouldn't be able to enlighten.
Okay, right. So one answer is that these two things require each other. If there's no idea of what dark is, then there's no idea of what light is. By the way, there are versions of this text that actually what it says are Yotzer or Uvore Ra, which is God creates light and also creates Ra, which is evil. So in that sense, it's like the forces of light and darkness, which, is popular in a lot of areas. But again, did darkness have to be created at all? So it's true, like, contrasts are good, but like, I didn't realize that there was a darkness that needed to be created. Darkness is just a space without light. Yes?
I mean, metaphorically, you could see it as a reference to free will. So we have the opportunity to be light or dark in our lives.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so a little bit could be about free will. That I like that. Anybody else? What does it mean to say create darkness?
Separation between light and dark.
Yeah, although it's interesting, right? Because we actually have a blessing in Judaism, or a set of blessings that we talk about separation between light and darkness, which is what? Anyone know? We don't do it now, but we would do it later in the day. Havdalah, right? Havdalah comes from the verb lahavdil, which means to separate, right? We separate light and dark from each other. So there is a separation element, although there's another blessing for it. And so, again, there's no right or wrong answer for it, but it's interesting because one of the things that's really, really hard about the Siddur is, and I would say is somewhat tragic, is that most of the things that we repeat, we're supposed to repeat them and supposed to imagine the greatest possible significance to repeating them over and over again every time. And it's just not possible for most people to do that. So meaning, the first time we talked about the Torah service is supposed to be imagining that the Torah is literally being brought down from the mountaintop and being read each time. We read Torah 4 times a week. Traditionally, you read on Monday, Thursday, Saturday, and Saturday afternoon. It is impossible, I think, for most people to imagine when that Torah comes out. Each time they're just imagining a once-in-a-lifetime event. The same thing goes for creation. Every day I'm supposed to pretend that the world is being created over and over again. That seems like a hard thing to do. But what is the benefit of every morning trying to remember the world being created from scratch? Like, what is the benefit of at least trying every day to say that the world is being created anew? Mitch?
Well, you really struck me when you talked about Ra before, and to me, because I know from history that concept has been used for a great deal of racial theology against various peoples, including the Jews, but Nazis. And the fact that we can move away from darkness into light is fascinating to me. And waking up every morning and being able to know that we can get beyond the evil.
Right, okay, so I like that. So, no matter how bad a day is, no matter how bad any one day is, the very fact that you made it to the next day is in of itself something to be thankful for. So on a basic level, like, hopefully today will be better than yesterday, no matter whether yesterday was good or bad or somewhere in between. So one thing is every day you just are recognizing that, you're alive. You're alive. What else? What is the benefit of thanking God for creating something new every day? Yes?
Well, it means that then we get to co-create that. We get to participate in the act of creation of this world. And so that we remember that we can help. We can participate as well, I guess.
Okay, so it's not just about God, it's also a little bit about us. Some people get bothered when you say that God needs people to do things. Like it's a very, there's a famous Israeli philosopher who died many years ago, but he had this weird theory that any argument for doing any mitzvah that was about its meaning for you was actually like a form of idolatry. Like he felt that anything you did any reason it was for yourself was taking the focus off God and putting it on yourself. In fact, he argued that like if God commanded him to read the phone book, then the commandment is to read the phone book. The fact that it happens to be meaningful to him is sort of irrelevant. It's a very, very extreme position that I don't think most people really adopt. But it is a good reminder that like, okay, so like you're saying, I'm a part of it, but how much am I really a part of it? Alan, are you raising your hand or no? Stretching. Okay. So this brings us to the second blessing, which puts us on page 110. So notice we're skipping a lot of mumbling space here. Okay, we skipped Eladon. We were on 107. We've now skipped 3 pages ahead for the next blessing, which is interestingly also about light. Baruch atah Adonai yotzer ha-me'orot. Now, it's interesting. If you were to do what I was sharing with you that my children learned in school, where they first in kindergarten learned these blessings about any of the stuff in between, you would be saying, praise are your God who creates light and darkness, and then they would just go to say, praised are you God who creates lights. Like in the way that they did it, you basically would skip from one to the other. And that's the next blessing. So are these the same blessings? This is about to get very, very wonky, but I want to see if anyone can get a sense of why this is.
One is light and one is sources.
Okay, so one is light and one is sources of light. Okay. There actually are 2 different points in the creation story where something related to light is created. Okay, so the first day, right, Ray mentioned this, right, like the first thing that's created is light. Okay. The second day that's created is water, or separating water. Anyone know what's created on the third day? On the third day, the planets and the earth is created, and the stars. So in some sense, like the difference here is between like there just being light and there being actual things that people can live on. The sun, the stars, the planets, our planet, all of these things that we are created. And it has this wonderful line, which says, Hamechadesh, it's the fifth line from the bottom. Hamechadesh b'tuvo b'kol yom tamid ma'aseh bereshit. God, in His goodness, renews creation, Hamechadesh, every single day. So we already discussed one reason, like God renews creation every day by being alive every day. But what are other ways that creation is renewed every single day? There are lots of ways that creation is renewed every single day. But this is sort of transitioning just from the world of light to the world of actual people. Yes.
Every day you have the opportunity to do something different.
Hey, every day you have the opportunity to do something different. Absolutely. What else? Waking up. What else? What are other ways that things are created different every single day? Weather can be different every day. Absolutely. There's something that happens almost every second on Earth somewhere with someone. That happens every day. Yeah, new people are born. New people are born and new people die every second of the day. You know, I've never counted it, but I would imagine that like it would be reasonable to assume, I don't know how many seconds are made up in 24 hours. If anyone knows that, that would be very cool, but I do not know that. Okay. So I see some of you trying to do the math in your head, but like every second of the day, it's pretty likely that every second of those 24 hours, someone is born and someone dies somewhere in the world. So creation's happening all the time. New light is coming into the world. Lives are going out of the world as well. So this is where it gets to people, right? It's not just like creating light and darkness is sort of like there being a creation at all. And then at some point, there's actual things that we have to create day after day. Now, you don't actually skip ahead all these pages. You actually just go to the bottom of 111. This is the passage Ahava Rabbah, and it's a weird transition because this blessing, the bottom of it, which we do right before the Shema, is Baruch Atah Adonai Habocher Be'amo Yisrael Be'ahava. Praise are you, Lord our God. I don't really like this translation all that much. Who chooses his people Israel. Bocher means like to choose someone. His people Israel in love. Tessa.
There's 86,400 seconds.
Say that again, Tessa?
86,400 seconds.
86,400 seconds in a day. Okay. So in each of those 86,400 seconds, there is someone being born somewhere and someone dying. I think that's a pretty good, that's pretty likely given that there are like 8 billion people in the world. That's a relatively small number compared to the total number of people in the world. And let's go, and now with this blessing, it says, so there's an interesting addition to this blessing that I want to because it's choosing Yisrael, and by the way, like it's important to remember, not for any like political or current events reasons, that like when the Siddur refers to Yisrael, it's really referring to the Jewish people, not to like the state of Israel as we think about it today. Not that there's anything wrong with thinking that's what it is, but you should kind of just know that's not like that's. It's referring to. Otherwise, we would be saying we're blessing one particular piece of land in the world as opposed to all the Jewish people. So, but here's the thing. There's a word here that you could argue doesn't need to be there. Praise are you, Lord our God, who selected his people Israel in love. Habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Who said that, Phoebe? I thought you said it. Okay. Oh, Susan, yes. Ahava. It doesn't, like, it's a nice word to say that God chooses the people Israel in love, but it's not actually an absolutely necessary word. You could remove it. It's I guess I would say in love is like an adjective. No, sorry, an adverb probably. Grammatically, I guess it would be an adjective, not an adverb, not an adjective. But like most adjectives and adverbs, you can like in theory get rid of them from a sentence. So if the sentence was what?
I think it goes from an adjective to an adverb. So the translation makes it an adverb.
Yeah.
But when you say in love, it's an adjective.
Well, it really would be lovingly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, the reason I bring it up is I'm saying that if the blessing had said Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'amo Yisrael, period, there would be nothing wrong with that sentence grammatically in Hebrew. You could just say, "Praised are you, God, who chooses his people Israel." So why include this one additional word? Obviously, it's a very significant word, but I want to just make sure we're clear about like it doesn't have to be there. It could be gone, and the sentence would still make sense. Yes, Mitch?
I think that it's essential, possibly the most essential word in the world. And there are certain people that would say that it's all you need.
That is true. Yes. No, I mean, you could say so. Love is not just a thing. It's like. No, I mean, love is not just a thing. It's like you could argue it's like the thing. By the way, the word love comes up very soon after this blessing. In what prayer?
Oh, I don't really.
Anyone know? Look at the next page. Right, the ve'ahavta. Right, like the next prayer is you say the Shema, and then the first word is ve'ahavta, which is you shall love. So there's clearly wanting to emphasize love as being something very important. I'm making my way through a 600-page book by a teacher of mine that just got published, where literally the title is just called "Judaism is About Love." I'll have to get back to you if I think if he makes that case convincingly. So far, I'm enjoying it very much, but the idea that like right before the Shema we say God does this in love is not a small thing, and maybe it is because love is all you need. And yes, I got that reference.
I mean, it can also be like a reminder to us. I guess I think I could remember just like choose someone else. You know what I mean?
Oh, so wait, make sure I
Choose someone else sometimes, because sometimes being chosen isn't.
Oh, I never thought of that. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. So you're saying there's that famous quote, I think it's actually a Shalom Aleichem quote, that's like, God, I know that the Jews are your chosen people, but couldn't you choose somebody else sometimes? Right? So that is like sort of a sarcasm of saying like, yeah, I mean, it's nice, but like if we were chosen a little bit less, then maybe our lives as Jewish people, you're saying if you don't include the word ahava there, then you could argue that it has a little bit of that, like, well, being chosen isn't really all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So the love actually gives you a certain amount of reassurance of saying like, and by the way, like it's customary, in most shuls that at the beginning of this passage that people start to gather their tzitzit, that at the gathering of the world together. And so in some sense, like that's another way of saying in love, you're going to gather Jewish people together from all the corners of the earth because you're doing it all in love. Yes.
Well, I mean, theoretically, God's chosen all of this. And so we are the ones who get chosen in love, right? We are not the ones who get chosen, sort of building off what Kiwi says, right? In some way, like, all of this is chosen by God, right? In theory. And so we have to be chosen. We are chosen specifically in love, I guess.
Yeah, now it's interesting. We're going to come back to this when we're going to dive a little more in depth to the Torah portion than I normally do on these Shabbatot. This week's Torah portion is where people are commanded to be holy. Where it says, Ki Kidoshim Tihiyu, Ki Kadosh Ani 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 Elohim. Like, God commands us to be holy. It's a little bit weird to command someone to be holy in the same way it's weird to command someone to love someone else. So in some sense, these things are reminders as well as something that you're supposed to actually do. Yes.
Just a question, you mentioned prior to the Shema. The Arba Kanfot that's referred to in the Habat prayer, can you tell us the technical reason for tzitzit and why that is related to four corners of the earth, and why we then use that symbol when we say the Shema?
Sure. So, okay. So the last paragraph of the Shema talks about the tzitzit, right? That's where you'll see people holding them and kissing them in shul. The tzitzit, it's actually a numerical thing. It says that when you look upon the tzitzit, they will remind you of God's commandments, and basically the gematria for the word tzitzit, which is tzadi yud tet, or sorry, tav, excuse me. Tzadi in gematria is 90, and yud is 10. So tzadi plus yud is 100. Tzadi plus yud is 100. That's 200. Tav is 400. So it comes to 600. And if you count on your tzitzit, you will see that there are 5 knots and 8 fringes, which add up to 13. So you add them up all together. That's how you get 613. Yes. So that's where the reminding comes from. You have, it's all these play on numbers. And it says very clearly that the garment should be 4 corners. I actually think the whole 4 corners of the earth thing comes after the 4-cornered garments, but I'm not positive about that. But remember, people used to think the world was flat, so it had 4 corners. Unless you go to a flat Earth convention, which apparently is still a thing. What?
Sorry, it's a disc, not.
The flat earth people.
Oh, then it can't have corners at all, I guess. Okay, fine. Fair enough. They think that it is a disc. Okay. Can't say that I spent that much time exploring the flat Earth curriculum. Yes. Okay. One more blessing, and then we're gonna read some Torah today, and honor Kiwi, who doesn't want me to remind people that we're honoring him today. Sorry, Kiwi. The last blessing is on the bottom of 114. Okay, which is Baruch Atah, the last line. Baruch Atah Adonai Gaal Yisrael. Praise are you, God, Redeemer of the people Israel. Now, this actually is interesting because what does it mean for God to redeem someone? Like, redeem is like a nice word you hear in religion a lot, but I don't know if it's like a word that we really have a great translation for. Like, what? Okay, can make you better.
Has to do with purpose.
Purpose. Rescue. Yeah, I mean, it could be all of these things, right? Like that. And going back to the one about like rescue, one of the promises that God makes in the Exodus story is that you will be redeemed. I will redeem you. But it's interesting because when you think about those 2 blessings next to each other. One blessing is God chooses Israel in love, and then God redeems the people Israel. In a weird way, it's almost to me feels like a little bit of a reminder of what Kiwi said a few minutes ago, which is, well, can you choose someone else sometimes? And it's like, in case you needed a reminder that God's choosing you in love, God will also redeem you. So even if it may not feel that you are, living in love. I think last year on Pesach, I taught about this. Not that I expect people to remember what the rabbi talks about even 5 minutes after services is over. But, last week was Yom HaShoah. And there are texts of people who see some of these blessings, who are reciting them while living in a concentration camp or a working camp saying like, how am I supposed to say that God chose me in love? How am I supposed to say, thank you, God, for not making me a slave? Because like, look at where I am right now. Some of these things are there because they're just like mantras. You're supposed to like repeat them over and over again as a reminder every single day, because God thinks in millennia, not in like days. Because that we think often in, what was that test at? 86,400 seconds? Yeah. We think sometimes in seconds or minutes or hours. We don't think God is a much more long-term thinker than the rest of us. But if you don't say it by saying it every single day, it's a reminder to you that over time, things will go up. Kind of like the stock market in that way, Well, that's true. That's what I was taught when I was taught how to manage my own finances. Is that like, there are literally things that help you make money for your money that basically are just based on saying that over time, the stock market will go up. The best thing that you can do is invest in things that invest in the stock market as a whole, because over time, if you just sit on your tuchus and don't touch it, it'll keep going up. But if you look at it every single day and you're flopping around with it, then you're not really embracing the idea that over time, it's just going to keep going up. Yes, one more comment. Not I mean you personally, but one more comment before we go to the next part.
Well, by the way, that's correct. Let's go. But that's not my comment. My comment is about the mantra. Isn't that important also just in terms of the process of saying it is part of spirituality and in order to feel the spirit within you?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? So I'm going to blank on the name of it. There was like a rabbi who passed away like a couple decades ago. He basically like says that the biggest mistake we make with Jewish prayer is that because most Jews in the United States are Caucasian and they come from Western countries, like Germany, Poland, England, like places like that. It's very easy to forget that actually Judaism is much more like an Eastern religion than a Western religion. And his point was that, like, when you look at the religious texts of Islam or in different dharmic faiths like Buddhism and Hinduism, Buddhism is not a dharmic faith, but Eastern religions, there's a lot more mantras in those traditions where you're just saying things repeatedly over and over again. And the assumption is not like every single time I say it, it's going to be like the most meaningful thing I ever said. It's just that like I'm building the habit of saying it over and over. I'm not so sure if Western religions don't do that also, but like that was his point was that we're used to imagining that the service should be always original when actually there's something really there to ritualizing saying the same thing over and over and over again. Okay, with that, we're gonna read some Torah. And like I said, so this is the third Open Door Shabbat, I think. So the next time we're going to focus on the Amidah, and as I was saying at the beginning, is I think that assuming that we continue doing this, which I think is fairly likely, we're just going to keep doing the 4 parts over and over again, but we're going to do different parts each time. Because as you notice, we didn't cover all that much. We covered 4 blessings out of 10 pages worth of stuff. And you're like, well, if Shul was that quick, then I would love coming to Shul if it were that quick. I get it. It's a lot to cover. But it also is a way to remind you that it actually is sneakily okay if you are in Shul and you are just not feeling it to just say the blessings. It's better to say the blessings than to say nothing. It's better to say just the blessings than to say nothing. Because most people on Saturday mornings say nothing. So who might argue with you saying the blessings over saying nothing? And with that, we're going to turn page 138 and take out the the Sefer Torah. Sorry, 139, excuse me, with Ein Kamocha. Ein Kamocha Elohim Adonai v'Ein Kamasecha Malchutecha Malchut Kol Olamim U'Memshaltecha B'Kol Dor V'Dor Adonai Melech Adonai Malach Adonai Imloch Le'olam Va'ed Adonai Oz Le'amovitem Adonai Yivarech et Amo B'Shalom Avarachamim Tiva B'Rtzoncha Et Zion Tivnei Komo Yerushalayim Tivnei Komo Yerushalayim Ki B'Kal Levabatachnu Melech Olam Adon Olamim. We rise as the ark is open, 139. We're going to the Torah or opening the ark? Opening the ark. Go for it. There we go. Vahi bin Soharon, Vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, Ve'afutzu Oivecha, Ve'anusu Mesanecha Mipanecha, Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah, Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah, Udivar Adonai, Yerushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Le'amo Yisrael B'Kedushato, Be'anarafetz, V'lishnei Kadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Anan Martu Shechai, Be'yanarafetz, V'lishnei Kadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Anan Martu Shechai, Yehrava Kadama, V'tiftach li V'oraita, V'tashi Shalim B'libi, B'liba B'cholam Yisrael, L'tavo Vayim V'lishlam. Amen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu. Gadol Adonai, Kadosh Shemo, Echad Eloheinu. Gadol Adonai, Kadosh Shemo. Unerama Shemo Yachal Lecha Adonai Hagidula Ve'Hagidura Yativeret Ve'Anitzach Ve'Hod Ki Kol Bashamayim U'Ba'aretz Lecha Adonai Hama'achad Ve'Aminaseh Lekol Rosh Roman Blue, Adonai Eloheinu, Yishabahu, Adonai Kadoshu, Roman Blue, Adonai Eloheinu, Yishabahu, HaKadosh, Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
Just waiting.
Oh, wait, okay. You may be seated. Just pass these back. We're not gonna use them until we start using them before we start reading, which is, like I've done on other weeks, we've done Open Door Shabbat. I prefer to give you a little bit of a teaser. So I don't actually think we read this part in this week's Torah portion. I could be wrong, but this week is the Torah portion where we are commanded to be holy. And that is kind of a strange thing to command someone for. It's sort of like commanding someone to love. It's sort of like I thought that these things were supposed to be things that come like of your own accord. So how is it possible that you can command someone to be holy? So as you follow the Torah reading, you can also peruse the handout, and we'll come back to it once we are done with the Torah reading this morning.
Be page 693.
Page again?
693.
So it starts at the beginning of it. Right. Yeah. No, sorry, that's not good. Okay. Okay.
Zohar v'yagim v'yashir l'chol ha'chosim b'avin ha'maramin ha'kol ha'kol ha'chosim b'avin ha'kol Torah Meichan Kohen Ya'amod Akiva Yaakov ben Avram Asara Le'aliyah Rishon Baruch Shesnata Olam Yisrael B'Kedushaso. The first aliyah is found on page 693, verse 1.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Torah.
El Halim, El Hikbet, Elohei, Yit Mas Maseka, Lotasu, Lachem, Amiyatinai, Elokechem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah v'chayei olam v'tzadakatim v'tzadakenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Mishabera, Kavotenu, Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov, Sarah, Marco, Leah, Uyamareh, Yaakov, Ben Abraham, Avinu, Sarah, Emmanuel, She'alal, Hayom, Litvod, Hamakom, Litvod, Atorah, Litvod, Hashabbat, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Yishmor, Oto, Gekol, Mishpachto, Vishlach Bracha, Batzacha, B'kol Maseh Yadav, V'kol Yisrael Echav, V'nomar, Amen. May God, who bless our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless TV who has come to the Torah, greatness for God, the Torah, and Shabbat. May the Holy One watch over him and members of his family, bring blessing and success to all his worthy endeavors, together with all of our fellow Jews everywhere. And let us say, Amen. Mazel tov on your Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Sing it out. Sing it out. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Sing it out. Sing it out. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Sing it celebrating with special community. Sponsored by Newman Alley.
Ya'amod Dina Tam Tamo Dina Pina Bat David Meira Lalia Sheni. The second aliyah can be found on page 694, verse 5.
Baruch Adonai Hamorah. Baruch Adonai Hamorah. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'charbanu kohanim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Rechi tizbechu zerav shalmim v'adonai l'tzomchem tizbechu v'ayom yom tzivachem yachel v'mochorat v'hanotar ad yom hashlishi v'esh yisarei ve'im ha'achol yachel v'yom hashlishi hagu lo yirtzeh Yoflav Adonai Yisrael, Yekodesh Adonai, Yilel B'Nikratah, V'Nefesh Shahim Me'amecha, V'Kutrachem, V'Tzirachem, Lo Tigaleh, Ha'Yitzarechah, L'Yitzor, V'Leki Kitzirachah, Lo Tilakeh, V'Kamecha, Lo Te'achel, V'Tzirakamecha, Lo Tilakeh, Only God gets over time. I need Adonai Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'hayei olam natan b'tzavinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ya'amod Nachum Mendel ben Yaakov Lev Aliyah Shlishi. The third aliyah can be found on page 695, verse 11.
Baruch Adonai Hamorah. Baruch Adonai Hamorah le'olam va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Lo tigam achami, lo tigabru, lo tigafu, lo tishtak, Tishu Ishbem Amito. Yishima Shaker, Hilota, Shanaka tonight. Lotashu Petrea, Loti, Tizo, Lotan, Shakat Zakir, Attack, I don't care. It's a Kalash with name, either what's a team, each full cat, the Kaka,
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet b'chayei olam, natan l'Eloheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Now we're setting Mishnah Berach. We'll lead a special prayer for those who need healing. When I reach the pause, please add any names of those that we would like to have added. Mishaberach Avoteinu Abraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah Chavalaya Hu Yivarech Rebbe Hacholim Dodi Knebel Minnie Zimmerman Robin Voorhees Raina Rosendorf Kiamina Bat Asnan Nathan Mendel Yonah Ben Gil Yaakov Andrew Alper Shalom Ben Chaim Henny Bat Evelyn Rachel Bat Eleonora Joel Tarlo Eric Masha Zalman Mordechai Aaron Ben Yehudit Adina Bat Guta Shoshana Bat Torah Sarah Chana Bat Diesel Vidal Beryl the Lady Gary Lefkowitz, Howard Lefkowitz, Eric Laxman, Doug Mayer, Ben Abraham, Udvar HaKohen, Michael Stos, Pasach Rufo, Badina, Tzvi Hirsch, Bar Esther, Faith Baran Chwai, Hirsch Ben Kokana, Deborah Ramirez, Alona Batsara, Sherwin Lift, Harad Yaakov Ben Esther, Adam Topol, Dak Denchik, Dina Bat Bryany. Other names?
Shai Dromi.
Kevin Phil, Avery Phil,
Yehudi, Bat Ruth, and Ariel Hernandez.
Jason Barber.
Vekolatoli, Magadas Baruch Hu Yemal Rachamim, Aleihad Lachim Rapotam, Vishlach Levoshimam, Minashamayim, for the never before the goof, Shabbat Elizo, for Kabalabo, Hashabagalav is not breathe, and Omar, Amen. Now I'm going to rise from the Chatzi Kaddish, and then we will lift the Torah. Yikada, Yikada, Shemei, Rabbi, Yomani, Rabbi, Bechaye Kolu, Yomei Kolu, Bechaye B'Cholei Yisrael, Bagala, B'Yizmai Beinu, Amen, Yeshmei Rabban Barak, Ve'alam Yom Yamaya, Yibarak, Yibarak, Yishtabak, Yibar Mitzrayim Yinaseh, V'Yitzadar, V'Yitzaleh, V'Yitzalach, Shmen Kudsha, V'Yitzaleh, Kol Birchata B'Shirata, Tushrekata B'Nechem Matata, Mimram B'Yama, V'Yimeru, Amen.
Ya'amod, Hamagia V'Hagolelet.
Please remain standing. Torah, Asher Tzam Moshe, Lifnei Bnei Yisrael, Mi'Adonai, Mi'ad Moshe, Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah, Adonai Yerushalayim, Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah, Adonai Yerushalayim, Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah, Adonai Yerushalayim, Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah. Tetzei Torah. Udvar Adonai Yerushalayim, Mitzion Tetzei Torah. Udvar Adonai Yerushalayim, King Mitzion Tetzei Torah. Udvar Adonai Yerushalayim, King Mitzion Tetzei Torah. Udvar Adonai Yerushalayim. I'll put the Torah up there for the moment. Okay. Maybe seated. So let's go back to our Torah portion here for a moment. So, based on either what you think on your own or what you read on the handout, any thoughts on what it means to command people to be holy? Which is like, first of all, do people even know what the word holy is supposed to mean in Judaism? So the most common answer that's given is separate. Other ones? What? Special. Yeah. It's a weird word to translate. You know, I had a teacher in school who was very adamant that like holiness does not mean separate. Now, and his argument was, I'm not actually sure if he's right or not. So I'm not. By the way, like lots of people use that word to translate it. But he said, you know, in the Amidah, we say the passage Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melo Chol Haaretz Kavodo. So holy, holy is God. The whole world is filled with God's glory. If God were separate, how can the world be filled with God? So his argument was like, it's separate because it's full of God. It's not separate as in like it's apart from everything else. But either way, it's like it's not an easy word to translate. So when it says, you shall be holy, what are some possibilities for what that means? Yes, Mitch.
Worthy?
I'm sorry?
Worthy?
Okay, but how do you, let's maybe just translate. How do you do it? Like, so we can translate holy however we want, but like, if we're saying be holy, like what do you have to do in order, there's an assumption with a mitzvah that you have to do something to fulfill it, right? Like the mitzvah of giving tzedakah, you take money, you give it to someone who doesn't have it. There you fulfilled the mitzvah of tzedakah, right? Your command, there's a mitzvah to like sit in a sukkah. You sit in the sukkah, you fulfilled the mitzvah of sitting in a sukkah. So what do you do to check off the box of being holy? Okay, so one option, and this is some of the sources that are on the back page mostly, is that holiness is like a super commandment. It's basically like all the commandments are really about being holy. So this is just like a catch-all for anything. There's actually my favorite text here is that there's a passage that says that if you're presented with the opportunity to do something wrong and you choose not to do it, you actually have fulfilled the mitzvah of being holy because you've like restrained yourself. So one option is it's basically like a mitzvah that covers every other mitzvah, or most of the major mitzvot. Believe it, anyone else? So Susan's answer is the one that I would, if you were, not that you would put a gun to my head, but like if I were being asked to like give my one sentence answer, I would probably use Susan's answer. It is interesting that in some cases, our rabbis identify the commandment to be holy as associated with specific mitzvot, not like all of them, and those are on the first page. So the first answer, which I would say is like the most common one, this is why Rashi says it, is that the commandment to be holy is really a commandment on forbidden relationships. That's why it follows sections that deal with a lot of this. Like last week, we read a lot of those passages, and there are other ones this week. So like really, holiness is about sex. is that what it is? That's what Rashi thinks, because the two things are up next to each other. This other one, which is on the commentary on the Torah itself, is, well, holiness is the commandment to pray. Like, what could be more holy than saying holy things to God? So the prayer to be holy is to pray. And another one is that you shall not eat like an animal. You shall not eat too much or drink too much or overindulge yourself. Which is interesting because there are a lot of commandments in the Torah that involve not really prohibiting something that you might argue you shouldn't do, but urging restraint in how you do it. So, like, the Torah doesn't prohibit sex, but it restricts how you do it. The same thing goes for eating. Like, the Torah does not say like you should fast like 5 days a week, or like you should just not eat something like forever, kosher aside. But it says you shouldn't eat like an animal. You shouldn't eat too much. And I think that the tension here between like is holiness one thing or is holiness many things is like actually a much bigger deal than we might realize, because when you ask someone, how do they find meaning in mitzvot? For some people it's really hard to wrap their head around the idea of like observing a lot of specific little details a very specific way, right? Like, and every single rule in the Torah has those kind of things, right? Like, you can divide up a mitzvah into a lot of different things, and there are literally books and books on my bookshelf that will explain all of it for you. But then there's also people who would say, well, let's not lose track of the forest from all the trees, and saying like it's about a certain way of being. And ultimately, like that's the most important thing. And so that tension is like actually like really live in people's struggle with Judaism. Is like it's very easy to get lost in the details. But if there are no details, then it's just like this vague idea that you should just be holy. But if the details become the whole purpose and you're not like rising above it in some way, then the details kind of feel very, very impersonal. It's like praying the phone book, like I said earlier. Like it doesn't really work that way. So there's no, sorry, as in often is the case in Judaism, there is no one right answer. But I do think that it's not a small issue though. We all kind of have to live with what it means to be commanded to be holy. With that in mind, we're going to do in a moment a prayer for our country, a prayer for the state of Israel, and a prayer for the release of all the hostages. I have no particular major commentary on news about the hostages and what's going on this week, except to say that let's pray for a deal to get them home. Setting aside all the other elements of it, we should be. It seems like there were reports that a deal was somewhat close and then fell apart, and at this point, for me, I'm just praying that there will be a deal, and they will be home. And after we're done with the prayer for the hostages, we'll remain standing as we march back around with the Torah. So please rise, page 148. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony to banish hatred and bigotry and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. May this land under your province be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom. Help them fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen, page 149. Avinu Shabbat Shemayim, Sor Yisrael L'Go'alo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmika Geulatenu. Hagen Aleh Be'Brakastecha, U'Pros Aleh Sukat Shlomecha. U'Shlach Orkav Yamikal Rashat Tzareh Yotzeh, V'Tachmein Be'etzat Tova L'Opanecha. Kazeh Yidei Midinei Eretz Kodshenu, V'Arkilim Lohen Yeshua, V'Ater B'Tzachon Tatrem, V'Natah Shalom Ba'arav Simchato L'Am Le'Yashveh, V'Nomar Amen. Mishaber Kavatena Abraham Yitzhak Yaakov Sarar Karakov Leah, Hu Yivarech Yishmor V'Yitzor Niderei Tzvagan Al Yisrael Yishluyav, V'Kolachenu Hanatunim B'Tzara V'Shiva, Ba'avor Shekol HaKahal Gadosh Hazem Mikolav Ba'avuram, HaGadosh Borfu Yimel Rakamim Lehem Yitzien Nechoshech L'Samaveh, V'Mosroten Yinatek Mishtukotehem Yeshiem, V'Shibem Meira L'Chek Mishtukotehem. Yodu Adonai Chasdod Miflotav B'nei Adam V'Kuyav B'Hem Mikra Shekatuv V'Yeh Adonai Yeshuvun Uval Tzion Brina V'Simchat Olam Harosham Sason V'Simcha Yasigu V'Nasu Yagor Ma'anacha V'Nomar Amen. We remain standing on page 153 as the Sefer Torah is returned to the ark. Would you mind carrying it back? Quinn, would you mind opening the ark? Thank you. Okay, you're going to walk around the Torah, then we'll okay? Yeah, hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Ki Niskach Shemo Levado, Hodo Al Eretz, B'Shamayim, Vayarem Kerem Le'amo, Tila L'Kol Chasidam, Librei Yisrael, Am Karobo, hallelujah, hallelujah, Mizmor L'David, Habul Adonai B'nei Elim, Habul Adonai Kavod Ba'oz, Habul Adonai Kivod Shemo, Ishtachavu Adonai B'Hag HaKodesh, Kol Adonai Almayim, El HaKavod Yirim, Adonai Almayim Rabim, Kol Adonai Ba'Hakola, Kol Adonai B'Hadar, Kol Adonai Shover Arazim, Vaishaver Adonai Erzei Almanon, Vayarkinem K'Moegel, Levan B'Sriot K'Movim Re'im, Kol Adonai Chotzei Lavotesh, Kol Adonai Yachil Mibar, Yachil Adonai Mibar Kadesh, Kol Adonai Yachol Halayel, Vayachasot Ye'arot, V'Ehi Chalot, Kulo Omer Kavod, Adonai L'Mabuya, Shema Yeshev Adonai Melech Le'olam, Adonai Ozdei Amo Yitein, Adonai Yevorech et Amo V'Shalom, Uv'Nachol Yomar, Shuv Amar B'nai Yisrael, Ki lekach tov natati lachem, Torati al tazovu et kayimim, mamachazikim ba betokeh merushar derachem darkeno olam v'chol netivoteh shalom hashivenu Adonai elech Adonai shuva kadesh yameinu kekedem. The ark is closed. You may be seated. We continue on page 181 with Kaddish Shalem. Yikadal Vikadash Shemei Rabba Yamadi Brat Gurutela Komputela Kayetoni Mutam Kayetol Beit Yisrael Ba'alad Isman Karibim Ru Amen Yeheshmei Rabba Mebarak Alam Yamel Maya Yibarak Yibarak Yishtabak Yibarak Ram Yinasebi Tadar Vitala Vitala Shmei Kudsha Brigule Lavin Kodur Kadam Shirata Rabbiya Kamata Dan Ram Yamavim Ru Amen Tabas Lokum Israel Kodam Divishmaya Vimru Amen Yehishlam Rabba Mishmaya V'chaim Alayim Yal Kol Yisrael Vimru Amen Oseh Shalom Ramam Hu Yaseh Shalom Alayim Yal Kol Yisrael Vimru Amen. Page 182 in Elohim. In Elohim, Ekaronenu, Ekemalkeinu, Ekemoshienu, Mi, Elohenu, Mi, Ekaronenu, Mi, Kemalkeinu, Mi, Kemoshienu, Nodel Elohenu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Emalkeinu, We rise page 183 for Aleinu. Aleinu Shabeach Ladon Hakol Atedu La'Yotzer Breshit Shalom Asanu Kuye Aratzot V'lo Samahanu Mishpachot Ha'adama Shalom Sam Kalkenu Kahem V'gor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam Ranaknu Kori Umishakabim Umadim Lifnei Melech Malkei Halakim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kakatuba Tartech Adonai Yilach Le'olam Vo'ed V'nemar V'haya Adonai V'melech HaKol Haaretz Bayom Ha'u Yeh Adonai Echad U'Shemo Echad. May be seated. Today is the third day of Iyar, which corresponds to the 18th day of Sfirat Omer, the counting of the Omer. This week, we observe the following yard sites here at ACI. Bessie Erin Franklin, Teresa Pett, Emmanuel Rubin, Henry L. Holland, Bella Zwicker, Jack L. Blass, Rose Bard, Elizabeth Mary Fondler, Annie Linewall, Tova Yael Street, Sarah Petruski, Sam Labbers, Louis Borscher, Milton J. Gromit, Armin Diamond, Sadie Saphir, Bernard Steinberg, Samuel Goldstein, Esther K. Samet, Catherine Steiner, Rebecca S. Markowitz. Those who are mourning, those who are observing yard sites, please rise. Page 184, Kadisha Tov, Mourner's Cottage. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Yalma, Tibarach, Yeruseh, Yamlech Malchuteh, V'chayim V'chon, V'gil Mechon, V'chayeh V'chol Beit Yisrael, V'agala, V'zman Karib, V'yibru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Barak, V'elam Omer Maya, Yiparach, V'yishtabach, V'yifahar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei Kudsha, V'yichu. La'ela min kol birkata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, d'amiram b'yalma b'muramein. Yehi Shlomo Rabba Min Shmaya, L'chaim Aleinu Yal Kol Yisrael, V'Yimur Amen. Oseh Shalom Ben Ramah, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Yal Kol Yisrael, V'Yimur Amen. I'd like to call on our President Janet for the announcements for this month.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Welcome to everybody who came in person today and by live stream, and for some new folks who are here. We're happy to have you. Just some short announcements. Please join us for Kiddush following services in the social hall downstairs, sponsored by Kiwi and Allie. In honor of Kiwi's completing his certification as a grade 7 to 12 educator and his acceptance into Hunter College, master's in education program. The world's better. Don't have a teacher, but be in there. May 17th, next Friday, is Kabbalah Shabbat at 6:30, followed by Yom HaAtzmaut themed Oneg, and a social gathering, which will be in the lobby. And May 24th, we're having a movie night. We're going to watch You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah. It starts at 6. It's really good. And please support our journal fundraiser if you're so inclined in honor of the amazing Susan Michael. Just an ad, and you can do so by, you can find more information on the website, historiacenter.org. And our next book of Shabbat is June 22nd. Have a great weekend.
In blue with the singing of Adon Olam on page 185, following that we'll have Kiddush and Hamotzi, and make our way downstairs. Sorry, 187, excuse me, I think I go off every week. Page 187, following that we'll have Kiddush and Hamotzi, and make our way downstairs for our special Kiddush. Adon Olam Asher Malach V'Terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'et Nasa V'Chepsa Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Azai Melech Shemo Nikra V'Yacharei Kikot HaKol Lev Adon Imlok Nora V'Hu Hayah V'Hu Oben V'Hu Yeh V'Tifara V'Hu Yeh V'Tifara V'Hu Echad V'Yeh Sheni V'Ham Shelo V'Hafira V'Lireshi V'Litamri V'Lo Ha'oz V'Ha'Yisra V'Lo Ha'oz V'Ha'Yisra V'Hu Eli V'Chayko Ali V'Tzor Kati V'Yeh Sarah V'Hu Nisi V'Hu Menakosi V'Yom Ekra Menakosi V'Yom Ekra V'Yadon Ahiruki V'Yeh Nishan V'Yayra V'Imruki V'Yati Adonai V'Lo Ira Adonai V'Lo Ira. We rise, page 315 for Kiddush and Hamotzi. Shabbat Ruben Esarah, Shabbat Tolah, Shabbat Recovery, Tolam. Beni Ruben Ben Eshalki, Lilah, Kishish, and Yosana, Shmai Merar, Tovia Mashvi, Shabbat Yom Pash. Zachor Yom Shabbat, L'Kodesho, Shish, Tavoda, Sida Komalan, Techa, Via Mashi Shabbat, Malaka, Lo Tasek, Komalaka, Atak, Ubika, Ubiteka, Abdaka, Bamadaba, Techa, Virakash, Visharaka. Yami Masada, Shmai Mera, Arjayam, Kosher, Bamai, Nakia, Mashvi. Akim Berachma, Yom Shabbat, Vayika, Sheu, Sabri, Baruch Atah, Namin, Melech Haolam, Baruch Hagafen. Potag Yedecha, Masbil, Kol Chayratzon, Baruch Atah, Namin, Melech Haolam, Motzi Lechem, Min Haaretz. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. See you downstairs.